The first set of RotoWire Roundtable rankings is up, and we are back on the Friday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We're sponsored by Fantrax, the most customizable free commissioner service in fantasy sports, and Underdog Fantasy, home of the biggest best ball contests in the industry. I'm Clay Link of RotoWire, here with FSWA Hall of Famer Todd Zola. Great to be back with you, Todd. I know you've been doing your thing over on MLB Network Radio, but great to be back on the podcast with you. How are you doing, man?
I am doing well, my friend, and it won't be long before I'm back on Sunday with Jeff on our weekend show on Sirius. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, no, that's going to be fun. And actually, I think we start. I fill in a Sunday early, a week from this coming Sunday. I'm working with Jim Coventry for a couple of weeks, and then we'll get together with Jeff. But doing well, busy with some Tout Wars preparation, which it's going very, very well. Happy to say, I'm pretty sure we have our party destination all hammered out. We'll be sending out a note, knock on wood, sometime by the middle of next week. And so there will be a Tout Wars party. It may take the entire party to announce the winners that have been missed. But we are very much looking forward to Tout Wars weekend.
Same, man. Always great. Although I haven't been back to New York for the actual get together in a while, and
none of us have.
Yeah, it has been what? Jesus,
2019 was the last one.
Oh man, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for all you guys do. And you mentioned Jeff, also part of the Tout Wars committee and board, and he had a really good article up just recently with some input from some of us around the site just about the new rule changes. Real quick before we get into the roundtable, you playing things any differently this year, Todd, or are the new rules just kind of wait and see on the impact?
It's a little more than wait and see. I've done some work on the scheduling. There's less of an influence as I thought there might be. To me, it's almost I want to see if the room is making huge moves, and maybe the play is to take advantage of a mistake by the room if I happen to sense one. The one area I have not really looked into myself yet as a whole is the shifting. I think in general, too much is being made of it. A lot of assumptions are being made as far as what would have been a hit and what wouldn't have been a hit if the shift had been there and had not been there. There are going to be some players, though, that benefit a lot. And those are the ones that I need to, and I'm not going to find anybody that's not already talked about. Any power hitting left-handed batter is going to fit that mold, and left-handed batters that hit ground balls as well. So that's the one area I haven't looked into yet. Steals, I think they're going to go up. And as we've talked about, there's a group at the beginning who aren't going to run regardless, and call them the Zolas, right? Then there's another group at the other end that I don't think they need any help. We'll call them the John Birdies. They're just going to, they're not going to run any more because of the rules. It's that bubble in the middle, and your bubble, those of us on watching on the video can see, I'm making hand gestures. Your bubble may be this, my bubble may be here, and how we either extreme, are we adding on 5 or 10? I think that's the key is we're, the group that we think will be affected. And we all think there will be. Just is it from 5 to 25? Is it from 15 to 20? What group is going to be affected? And the missing link to that is managerial tendencies, right? I think more than ever, what we need to do is watch early. And this is maybe my biggest strategy, is watching what happens early in the season and seeing which teams seem to be running more, and trying to identify players on those teams to either trade for and or pick up on waivers. Because I think the managerial tendencies is going to be a bigger factor this year than previously.
Yeah, managerial tendencies on the base path is always a huge factor. And, just whether the guys have a green light or not. And that plays a big role. I told Jeff, for my input that I was kind of in the Joe Sheehan camp of not really expecting the day-to-day product to look a whole lot different. I think when we look backwards after the season, we'll be able to see some differences in trends, some more stolen bases on the whole. Games will be shorter, but from first pitch to final out and the box scores, I'm not expecting the game to look a whole lot different, personally.
No, and we would Andy Andres from Baseball HQ has some experience with the pitch clock, monitoring it, and he actually ran it in the AFL. And he expects maybe a little bit of bumps early, but it won't be long before we don't even know. The pitchers don't even Kenley Jansen doesn't even notice it. They'll adjust. They're professionals. They have to. They will make adjustments. So even that will matter. I'm looking, it's only going to happen. How many times? I know 5 times over the course of the season where a good base runner has a good lead and he throws the pitcher tries to pick him up twice and fails. So it's that third one, and it's that cat and mouse game. Can I get an extra step? Then the pitcher has to say, do I have a better chance of picking this guy off, or does my catcher have a better chance of throwing him out? I think, how many times are you going to see that? Not a lot, but I think it's going to be kind of fun when it does happen.
Yeah, I think generally the changes are good for the game, but aside from games being shorter, I don't expect to be all that noticeable.
Yeah,
and plus, in a 1-year sample, certain changes will be diluted by just all the other variables in the game. There's
that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not. Well, does the shift matter? Well, you look at the numbers. We're not going to know. Is it just dumb variance, or was it real? Exactly. And people are looking at, well, it would have been a hit. It would have been a hit. 2012, it was this. Well, the strikeout rate was a lot lower, so you can't just look at batting averages because strikeouts matter. And even though you have to have two infielders on either side of the keystone, there's still going to be non-conventional positioning, right? Mm-hmm. There's still going to be shading up the middle. So a lot of these, it would have been a hit in 2012 because not only were they not shifting, they weren't moving their players around any at all. There's still going to be maneuvering of infielders. So you can't just say so-and-so would have gotten, he was robbed of 30 hits, he would have gotten 30 more, because 20 of those hits may have gone into the non-conventional positioning. And you can do whatever you want with the outfield. You can have the left fielder play rover and right and leave left open. I mean, you can do whatever you want with the outfield. So, and I know, again, that's not going to happen a ton, but I think we're going to see a couple of weird times where when the game's on the line, where it doesn't, if it's an out or the game's over, you're going to see the left fielder move on over the other side of the diamond.
Well, that was well put, and I'm glad we touched on that just because, it's been the whole winter, and thought we should at least touch on that before we get too deep into things. And definitely go out, check out Jeff's article on the rule changes. Really good stuff with input from myself, James Anderson, Todd's. I think you, Todd, right?
Yeah, I did Jason this. And I think Joe, you mentioned Joe. Joe mentioned a bit. Right. I mean, it's going to matter, but I just don't know. Tell me, you know what? Tell me what the ball is going to do.
I'd rather know what the ball is going to be like.
I care more about that. I mean, I mentioned it on Twitter yesterday, in that park factors right now are just wonky. Because in 2019, we had the Happy Fun Ball, and different parks played differently. I mean, the ball added 5 or 6 feet of distance. Some parks that mattered, in other parks it didn't. And so, kind of like the stolen bases, in some parks it was gone anyway. In some parks it wasn't gone. Then there's those ones in the middle that it became a home run park. So even though it's the same park, the ball mattered. 2020, throw those away. I know people are not doing that. They're factoring them in. The reason you throw them away is because of the geographical schedule, in that the assumption on the park factor equation is that the aggregate away games turn out to be neutral for every team. That doesn't happen, but it's close enough. I mean, we're talking, from the Padres compared to the Rays. I mean, different divisions, but based upon the 81 away games, quality of opponent, quality of parks, it comes close to being neutral. In order for this equation to work, it should be 0 or 100 or 1, whatever how you want to look at it, 1 or 100, whether you've already divided by the 100 or not. So adding in the geographical schedule skewed that. This year, so 2021, you've got the ball, you've got the different baseballs and the humidors. So those baselines are different. The denominators are different. So I've seen some people say, just use last year. Well, to me, there's more variance in 1 year's worth of numbers than there are in 3 years worth of flawed numbers. So
I see that.
It's just they're wonky. I mean, they're always wonky, but they're more wonky. And I'm kind of a park factor wonk, as it were. We got to use something. And now throw in Baltimore. So that was last year. Toronto's moving the fences, but they're also raising them. So there's some people that think it's going to actually make it more of a pitcher's park because of the higher fences. Detroit, right? They're shortening things and lowering the fence to 8 feet all around, or 7 feet all around, so that there's going to be more. Akia Badu is going to be robbing more home runs, and then Citi Field is making changes too. So who the heck knows?
Yeah, there have been so many variables, in recent years, especially, but the game's just always like that, and it is really hard to know, how to build your baselines for 2023. It's really tough. I'm more of a feel ranker anyway, and you more of a hard numbers guy, and that's why the roundtable is especially helpful, I think. Mentioned that at the top of the show. If you're unfamiliar with what the RotoWire Roundtable is, I rank 350 players. Todd here ranks 350 players for the fantasy baseball season. Jeff Erickson ranks 350, and then Eric Halterman ranks 350. And then those are combined into a composite top 300, sorted by median as the default. And that really does a good job because it eliminates the two outliers, and then you get the median. You get the middle of the middle, essentially. So it strips away a lot of bias. And I noticed in the comments, Todd, people are already saying that you're out on an island on a few guys, and that's the case every year.
Right. And to take it a little step further now, I wish this argument would be better. Well, not argument, but just discussion point would be better if there are more than 4. But how this differs from an ADP. I wrote about this earlier in a Todd Stakes. An ADP is not a rankings list, right? It's where the most aggressive person in each room would take a player. And sometimes it turns out to be a ranking, but if you were to go into a draft and ask everybody to rank the entire population and then average it, it would be different than the ADP. If one player likes a particular person and he takes him to the 75th pick, his ranking could have been like 90th, right? If you add up the 15 rankings, but his ADP is 75 because one person in that room, or one person in each room, is ahead of the field on that particular player. Our list is more representative of rankings list. Again, though, I wish there were more than 4 to make it, to differ it from an ADP. But it gives a little different of a view. To me, you use our list in conjunction with an ADP to try to figure out the optimal position to draft somebody.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And when you're in the article, they have their rank, but then you can also see, of course, each of the individual ranks. So, kind of gives a quick, just at a glance, look at the kind of the spread of where we see a player, and of course you can decide on your own where you think they should be, but give you a sense of where us for quote unquote experts see the player among the player universe. Todd mentioned that you're kind of out on a limb on some guys. The island of relevancy, I guess you could call it. I noticed that Acuna, just right at the jump at the very top of the roundtable. By the way, rotowire.com/free to check out the roundtable on us for 10 days and the rest of what we have to offer. Notice you're way low on Acuna, and I saw you tweeting about him recently too, and you're down at 16. Just in a nutshell, what's the case against Ronald Acuna coming into 2023?
To me, too much has to go right for me to take him over some of the more stable and very productive players. We need to see durability. We haven't seen that yet. Forget, not just the surgery, but in general. Acuna ran early last year, ran a lot, but he got hurt. Got hurt after running. Will his running be curtailed any? He needs the volume, he needs the home runs, and he needs the stolen bases because he's not going to hit for the same average that a lot of the players ahead of him are going to hit for. Is there a plausible path to making me look even dumber than I look and having me the number one player? Abso-freaking-lutely. But to me, too much has to go right. I'm looking at this list, and part of it is, part of it is numerical, but part of it is if I'm up on the board, at what point would I say, you know what? I'm going to take Acuna over who's left. And I don't know that it's a coincidence that it was the first pick in the second round in a 15-team draft, but who am I going to not take over him? And to me, there just wasn't anybody. And sometimes you're going to be willing to be wrong. And the poll that I posted, I'm definitely in the minority. But it's just, I don't. Still, he has to run, has to be healthy, and he has to hit for a decent average. That's a lot of ifs. And he's, people saying, well, it's another year off of the injury. Well, he still got a little bit dinged up last year too. So just there's too much to be concerned about.
Well, that's why this exercise is so helpful because the rest of us, the other three, have him top 5.
Yeah.
I have him 3. Eric Hultman's the high man at 2 on Acuna.
He's been going number 1 in some drafts. And I'm that's there. Like I said, there is a clear pathway, and it's kind of a harbinger of the show tomorrow with Eric Halterman on MLB Network Radio. We're going to talk a little bit about draft strategy in that. And our friend Derek Van Riper's this way too. He talks to me about it when we do teams together. They like to draft for what could go right. Too often, I fall into the trap of being afraid of what can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I'm at with Acuna. Is Chris Liss was another what can go right drafter. You are as well. You balance it, as does Eric Halterman, with some stability. Kind of implying Chris doesn't, but anyway. But I think to me I'll take my chances later, but I'm not going to pass on Manny Machado, on Freddie Freeman. I'm not going to pass on Mookie Betts to take the chance of a Ronald Acuna.
Well, I think that's I disagree, clearly
right.
When you look at the roundtable, but that's why this is so helpful. We need those dissenting opinions, and your approach has proven highly successful. You're a Hall of Famer, for goodness sake, and a TGFBI
not for playing. I'm not a homer. I'm a Hall of Famer for other reasons.
Well, but you did win the overall, in TGFBI. You're a good player, and
I wish I was a better player, but don't we all?
Yeah, but I'm just saying your approach has proven successful, and so while we disagree, I like to hear that other side of the coin because, hey, you could very well be right. And us three that are kind of in with the group may be wrong there. Another Atlanta player I saw, I actually had 3 on the docket here to discuss right away with the roundtable. Spencer Strider, I have him 27, Halterman 28, Jeff 32, and then you're down at 64. So another Atlanta player that you're lower on than most. I imagine you just need to see it again, essentially.
Part of it is see it again. Part of it is I'm a little bit lower on pitching in general. So that's part of it, but not all of it. That's too, there's more to it than that. Yeah, I need to, not only do I need to see it again, to me, I don't know that he's going to get the innings needed to warrant where you guys have him ranked. Now, not the corollary, but the yabat to that is, even with just over 130 innings, the dude fanned 202 batters last year. So it's not going to be because of a lack of strikeouts. It's just the ratios just won't be an influence over as many innings. I can't project him for the number of innings he needs to get the rankings where you guys all have him. And that's even considering that innings are more bunched than ever, that no one's getting the separation in innings just isn't there in general now. But yep, willing to be wrong.
Yeah, that's one that's just so appealing because of those strikeouts. But, we talk about reliever volatility. All pitchers have a great deal of volatility. And doing it once is a completely different thing than doing it year after year after year. We haven't seen Strider do that. So
we have him as the one. I just can't buy this. We have him as the 4th overall pitcher. That's too much. That's too high for me. The 4th best pitcher in the major leagues, the entire major leagues, and he hasn't even thrown 135 career innings. I can't do that.
Yeah, I think I'm the high man on him, but that isn't my projection. But regardless, I'm excited about him, but I get where you're coming from in that, man, we just have not seen it. And there are so many proven commodities on the board, especially in that.
Yeah. We've seen it, but we've only seen it for 2/3 of a season. That's all.
Just remember, though, he was not in the rotation to start. When he did get in that rotation, he was just off the charts.
Right.
Well, I want to get to that last Atlanta player, but real quick, we will pause briefly to throw to a brief word from our sponsors. And now we are back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Clay Link here with Todd Zola. First full week of our 5 days a week podcast schedule. Hope you are ready for some fantasy baseball like we all are, and we'll be getting you geared up. About 2 months away, Todd, before opening day. We got a while yet, but time to really crack down on the studies here and turn over as many rocks as we can heading into opening day. I mentioned the 2 Atlanta players that you are lower on than the pack, but what about Vaughn Grissom? You are, to say you're the high man on Grissom might be kind of selling it short a little bit of an understatement. You have him 72. The next highest guy is 143. So it sounds like Vaughn Grissom of Atlanta will be on every one of your teams this year, Todd.
I don't know about that. I thought you were going to go Olsen because I was higher on Olsen. But it's not. I mean, it's. I think that's it's not as.
You're a little higher on Olsen, but not as much as.
No, yeah, right. No, I kind of forgot about it. I think it's just. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a spreadsheet driven, but some decisions are subjective, and I think the subjective decision I'm making with Vaughn Grissom is twofold. Is first, I think he's going to play and play a lot. And second, and this isn't as big of a deal, but I think he sees the second hole at the top of the order against left-handed pitching, which is going to add a few plate appearances. I think by a slash line, if we were to ask the 4 of us for a slash line, I'll bet we're pretty close. But I'll bet you I have, if then we ask how many games or plate appearances, I'll bet I have 20 more games, 80 to 100 more plate appearances. I don't. Atlanta has not made a move. Well, now they were unable or unwilling, whatever you want to say. And I like the fact that Ron Washington is his tutor. So maybe this is, a little bit more of a, art than science Zola than we're used to. But I like Art Washington as his infield coach for the transition to shortstop.
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like what I saw from Grissom last year, and has that starting spot to himself. But yeah, maybe I just need to dive back in and reconcile a few things.
Well, I think we're gonna, once spring training rolls around, and it's 1,000% sure that he's the starter, then I think you guys will creep closer to me. Whereas if there's some question, I'll waddle closer to you guys.
I hear you. Well, another guy, along with Grissom, that you seem to be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but kind of all in on, Anthony Santander of the Baltimore Orioles. I thought I liked Santander, but turns out I'm the low man at 136. You have him all the way up at 84. So, it was kind of a breakout from Santander, even with the park changes last year. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, the outfield is getting a little hairy. So, yeah, I feel like this is one where I may end up settling a little closer to your rank here with Santander.
I think with Santander, I think I can look it up as we're speaking. You kind of alluded to it. I think that the expected numbers were higher for him. So that's factored into my evaluation. And I think that the top of the Orioles order is going to produce some runs. So my runs and RBI are pretty healthy. And sometimes those go, I don't want to say ignored, but a spreadsheet catches those where sometimes other things don't. Whereas the spreadsheet, though, will miss will miss subjective things like I just talked about. We'll miss Ron Washington. So there's advantages and disadvantages. And I like steadiness. I like stability. You kind of mentioned how outfield is not as deep as one may perceive. To me, Santander, I don't know that I want to. I'm taking a chance on Michael Harris, but I want outfield to be kind of foundational, set in stone, not have to worry about replacing him. I draft Santander. He's not going to win me the league, but I'm not going to be looking for a replacement either.
Yeah, the more drafts I do, I've felt the need to prioritize outfielders even more, because it gets to a certain point in the draft where you're sacrificing quite a bit of value just to start loading up on some outfielders. And I'd rather just get them early and then
multiple eligibility
bargains late.
Yeah, with multiple eligibility, there's a lot of outfield eligible that others are going to have at second and third and first. So I'm sure we'll have more shows centered around the pool, etc. But outfield does thin faster than you expect. And further, since this is draft and hold season, NFBC draft championships, the reserve outfielders are even cruddier than who do you? A lot of that's just because we're not sure who's going to play yet. But the reserve outfielders, I can David Peralta, Robbie Grossman, Cole Calhoun. I could grab all these guys. Now I don't know who my David Peralta is. Who is my left-handed? Yeah, he's gonna play 130 games and be okay, but I know he's gonna play. I'm not sure who that is for me this year.
Yeah, I was thinking about taking David Peralta in that Arizona Fall League speakers draft that we did. I was like, oh, he's still a free agent. Wow, I'm surprised.
Right.
I'm surprised nobody's scooped him up yet.
Will he sign? And so at this point, will he sign as a platoon player and get 130 games, or is it too late and he's going to be a backup? Although in the Arizona Fall League, you're just looking for him in the first pitch speakers league, any draft championship, you're just looking for that 3-week period where someone else is hurt and he's a starter.
Mm-hmm.
because you don't care. You want a stretch of games where you can use him. That could still occur whether he's a starter or not. An injury could open up some playing time.
Yeah, hell, man. David Peralta would make the Reds a better team, but I guess they probably
You
just
would
don't
make
want to
the Reds
spend
a
the
better
money
team.
and want to get a look at the younger guys. What were you going to say?
Said you would make the Reds a better. You know what? The Reds have actually signed a couple people lately, haven't they? I think the Reds have.
Well, they got Myers and they brought
Kinda
in
like-
Chad Pinder on a minor league deal.
Yeah, so they've filled in the blanks a little bit. Nothing. I'm sure just kind of like on a different level as what the Red Sox have done. Team I follow, but both teams have filled in their spots. And at least it's not quite as ugly as it may have looked previously.
Well, we got quite a bit more to get to with the roundtable, but briefly, I will bring you a quick word from one of our sponsors, Underdog. The fantasy baseball season is underway, and there's no better place to play than Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy baseball. Right now, Underdog has MLB Best Ball tournaments live, including the Dinger, which has $500,000 in total prizes. In Best Ball, all you do is join a contest, draft your team, and that's it. There are no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Draft 20 rounds of players and get the best cumulative scores in your starting lineup: 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and 1 flex each week of the regular season. Getting started is simple. Go to underdogfantasy.com, sign up with promo code RWMLB, and not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you'll also get 6 months of our RotoWire subscription for free. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code RWMLB. Draft your $100,000 Dinger team today. And we'll talk a little bit more about Underdog here a little bit later in the show. Just dipping my toes in. First 4 drafts on Underdog I've just completed in the last couple days, and having fun with that format. So we'll get into that format here in a bit. But Todd, back to the roundtable. I noticed as I was making my way down the list, seems like you were kind of lower on catchers than the rest. You said you're kind of a little bit lower on pitchers than the rest too, but the Wilson Contrerases, Alejandro Kirks, I noticed that you're lagging behind quite a bit. So is that just a strategy thing where you're not willing to invest what it costs to get catchers, especially at the top end?
I'm not sure it's so much not well. I don't think it's necessary. I think the back end of the pool is still terrible. So I think, I don't want to wait to the end, but you can get a decent catcher later in the draft than in previous seasons. I don't think you need to rush to get someone who you don't have to hold your nose. I'll use Christian Vasquez as the example, who no one loves him, but I don't think you're not upset. He used to be like the 11th or 12th catcher, and now he's like the 18th or 19th. So to me, that's a lot, and to get the same numbers. I don't think his numbers in Minnesota are any different expectations than his numbers in Boston. So that's, to me, you don't need to rush to get one of the top catchers. And therefore, I'm not going to. I'm doing the positional review with Eric Halterman on MLB on Saturdays. All right, you have to get yourself a top second baseman because there just aren't that many. You have to get yourself a top third base. You have to get yourself a third. You can't get a top of every position. And I'm not going to, I want some of these other positions. I'm not getting a top catcher. Now, you talked about best ball. That's different. Unfortunately, Underdog, which you talked about, catchers are part of the infield. But that's, in a different kind of a best ball league where catchers are their own position, I'm all over them. But that's not what we were ranking.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny because while you're taking that approach, I've actually kind of swung around and I'm starting to prioritize catchers a little bit more because, man, I've just found it in the past that if you want to build the best team, it's really kind of hard to do that when you have 2 crappy catchers. It's really hard to have the best 23 when you have 2 dead spots.
I'm not drafting crappy catchers. I don't think anyway. In our First Pitch Arizona League, which we kind of alluded to. Well, actually, no, I'm looking at the RotoWire. I'm in a Roto Junkie staff league, where it's a concurrent draft championships. I've got MJ Melendez and Christian Vasquez, then Aaron Nola. I can check out who I have in the in our draft and hold, but I'm not in the top 5. I'm looking in that 6 to 12 range to get at least one, if not two. And I can eyeball the list. I'm going to bet in the 6 to 12 range, I'm a lot closer to the field than I am early on.
In that First Pitch Arizona speakers draft, I took Dalton Varsho in the 3rd, and then Alejandro Kirk, several rounds later. So I paid up, and while I admit, like, my middle infield, my corner, my util kind of lagging, I think I can funnel guys in there through the bench to where I can get decent production. But I didn't see that path with the catchers. It just
right. No, I see.
Really ugly at a certain point.
So all right. So looking at it, so Tyler Stevenson, I'm well ahead of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's like the number 7 or 8 guy. Jansen, I'm with everybody. I'm behind on Raleigh, but I'm ahead of everybody on Ruiz. I'm ahead of everybody on Moreno. I'm with everybody on Darno. So there are catchers within this realm that I'm equal to, if not ahead of our rankings. So I will get them. I'm not expending what it takes to get one of the top guys.
I think that's fair. I mean, yeah, I've kind of pivoted and go in the opposite direction, but who knows?
Adley Rutschman in particular, I know he's one of those guys that's like a hot button topic, because if you like Rutschman, you really you love him. So to say that he's going to miss even one game, you could be canceled on Twitter. Let alone saying he's
pretty low on Rutschman, right?
Oh, I'm very low. Well, relatively low.
127. Right?
127 is what?
A lot lower than...
That's 8th or 9th round.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good for a catcher that hasn't played a full season. So, but
I have 51, but I think I'm going to lower him, because as much as I am prioritizing catchers a bit more, if I get a Varsho, I probably won't go Rutschman again a couple rounds.
And later. I know, I'm trying to remember who the backup is. Was it McCann? Was it McCann?
I think they brought in James.
And I know, the counter argument is, well, Rutschman can play, defense, first base or DH. I still think that having McCann as the backup is going to cost him a few at bats. And I'm going to do a piece. I'm in the process of doing a piece now for the site, Z-Files, that shows in formulaic rankings how much 10 or 15 plate appearances can matter, which is one reason why you need to get away from formulaic rankings, because you really want to draft a guy over another guy, a lesser guy over a better guy, because you feel one guy may miss a weekend by getting hit, on the ankle by a pitch or whatever. So, you want the better skills like Steamer 600 shows. That's going to be the point of the piece. But I can't see Rutschman getting the level of playing time that some feel he's going to get.
The beauty of 15-team leagues and 14 active hitters, 9 active pitchers is that when you're doing a draft, you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere. And in the past, I have sacrificed a catcher. I'm going to have to sacrifice elsewhere this year. But I just think, and I stand a better chance to build the best team 1 through 23 with a couple good catchers, rather than who are some of the catchers I saw get drafted at the end? Like,
well, the end is the end. It's terrible,
really terrible guy.
And you're mentioning the reason you're talking about is exactly in best ball why I want the catchers, because there's a better chance of my reserve infielders and outfielders having a wonderful week and jumping over my air quotes starting second baseman, whatever, than there is in my backup catcher. I want to draft my catcher spots. You know what I mean? I mean, I want to draft Realmuto because he's going to be great every week, and I know he's going to, give me the money's worth. But I don't know. I'm going to draft enough second baseman, shortstop, and third baseman that the third one I draft is going to make my lineup, a few weeks a year. So I'm with you as far as that exact theory when it comes to best ball.
Yeah, I got to a point in that draft where, people were drafting Eric Haas, the Eric Haas.
I don't mind right now. Right now, I don't mind Haas because he's going to play. But would it be shocking if Detroit, signed some? I don't even know who's available at this point. I could check it out. Do I have my gridding? I don't have my playing time grid available. But there's still a couple catchers out there. But right now, Eric Haas is going to play. So I'm not saying he's not a scrub. He's the tier above
200 and kill you though. But yeah, he will. He should play. I just, there's a guy playing not always a great thing because he could really sink you over 450 plate appearances.
No, that's true. That's very true.
Like Yes Money Grandal did last year. All right. Well, I noticed a big split on a certain reliever, so I thought we'd touch on him, Mr. Yohan Duran. Now, you're throwing cold water on Duran. Maybe I'm wish casting here a little bit, quite a bit. I have him inside my top 100. This may be another like Jonathan Loaizaga situation where I'm just really hoping this talented reliever gets the job. But I just don't see anybody else in Minnesota that really stands a chance. It feels like, I guess Jorge Lopez grabbed some saves too. And Duran never really took full hold of the job last year. But it feels to me like a foregone conclusion that Duran's going to be the closer for this Twins team. You're not so sure.
No, you mentioned the man. I've got Lopez, and
you got Lopez as the primary closer,
right? Well, I have him with like a 60% chance, and Lopez a 35% chance. Which, who knows what that's going to translate to, and maybe I change that later on down the line if it looks to be like Duran's going to get the job. But I think Lopez showed enough, and he's once he's been converted to the bullpen, he's done a pretty nice job, and I think Minnesota is going to want to try to compete. And I don't know. I just think that they're going to be want to go with the veteran sort of deal, even though it's not a proven closer necessarily. So, it's a whole lot less about skills and FIP and BABIP and all that stuff as it is just kind of a speculative feel for who's going to close. I mean, Lopez snagged 23 saves last year. A lot of those were the Orioles, though, right?
Yeah, 19 of those were with the Orioles.
Right.
And he really struggled with walks down the stretch with Minnesota. 14 walks and 22 2/3.
I think part of it, too, might be that if you just take his ERAs in a vacuum and project out his ratios, they're terrible because he was terrible as a starter. I think I tried to extrapolate his reliever numbers from that, which gives you less of a sample, and then convert some of the starters' numbers using the rule of 17, where your skills are 17% better as a reliever, to try to extrapolate what he may do as a reliever. And that just came out to be very, very favorable. And Duran still has got that arm, but isn't, his skills are too sketchy too. So maybe, at the price, I would much rather get Lopez at the price. And there's other closers I would rather have than Duran at his price. Now, I mentioned the walks. Duran got things under control last year, didn't he?
Yeah, he was dominant. And even Carlos Correa was like, this guy's going to be an all-world.
Yeah, I may have to reevaluate this one. There's two reasons why we're going to be updating these rankings every couple weeks. Obviously, moves. We all can't wait for Elvis Andrus to sign so we can jump him up. But I think we're all going to be reevaluating our outliers, good and bad. And as we do more drafts, battle testing our rankings, giving an honest appraisal of some of our numbers, and we're doing an injustice if we don't. I'm not going to change him just because everybody else did. But if you guys open my eyes and I'd say, you know what, Duran's control is better, I need to lower his walk rate, I owe it to the readers to do that and not be stubborn about it.
Well, Lopez, as I mentioned, had some issues with walks after coming over, and his numbers, with Minnesota were not so great. 1.63 WHIP, 4.37 yard. But I mean, how much does that really matter?
To me, it's a small sample. I looked at that as a whole, and not with Minnesota. But anyway,
I mean, I think I was probably discounting the chances of Jorge Lopez closing a little too much. I think you make a good point that
if at the very least,
not so cut and dry.
At the very least, I'm going to bring it to 50-50. And then I'm going to reevaluate Duran's control, because he did seem, one thing I'm going to do is, we talk a lot about swinging strike rate and how it correlates with strikeout percent. Your ball percent also correlates with your walks. So I'm going to see if, did he, air quote, get lucky with the walks? Did he throw more strikes and therefore he got fewer walks, or is just a matter of timing that he ended up walking fewer? So this is baked into my projections, so I don't know for sure. But if nothing else, over this hour, Clay, Duran is on my checklist as far as reevaluating.
Well, and he's on mine too now, because I kind of maybe discounted the chances for Lopez. And I mean, it's kind of anecdotal, but how many times do we see teams throw their best reliever in the 7th and 8th? And maybe, whether it's through cost control and arbitration, or just because they feel like that gives them the best chance to win, it's not always the best reliever who gets the closer job.
I'm not quite addled yet, but my memory is fading. Who Minnesota's manager at this point? Is it
Rocco Baldelli?
All right, I was thinking catcher. So yeah, he is. You can see him going that best, in that matchup route.
Yeah, you could.
You could, and I don't know. We're talking a little about the Minnesota bullpen. They don't have a whole lot else out there.
Right. Yeah.
Thielbar isn't bad. Emilio Pagan, but they all have warts.
But maybe a case can be made that Johan Duran is best utilized as a fireman to put out the fires in the 7th and 8th.
Maybe.
So maybe I got a little carried away on that particular ranks. But this is why this is such a good exercise. Well, I have more I want to throw by in regards to the roundtable, but we're going to shift our gears here a little bit. We will get into the Underdog Best Ball portion of the program here today. Underdog, I mentioned earlier, I'm just dipping my toes in on Underdog, having a lot of fun. Use promo code RWMLB, by the way. Mentioned that earlier, but definitely use that promo code RWMLB. We will match your first deposit up to $100, and you get that free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Todd, I'm a big season-long guy, but I feel like I've seen the future a little bit with this Underdog format. 3 outfielders, 3 infielders, 3 pitchers, 1 util. So you don't have to worry about catchers. You don't have to worry about relief pitchers.
Well, catchers, I believe, are infielders.
Yeah, so you do have to think about catchers, but you don't have to worry about filling catcher spots.
Right.
And you don't have to, obviously this is best ball, so you don't have to worry about, competing in the steals category. Steals are worth a good chunk of points.
Right.
So it's nice to get some steals, but you don't need to compete in the category. So it really is a lot different than your standard Roto season-long league. It's a lot of fun. One thing I noticed right off the jump, outfielder madness, Todd. Absolutely crazy. I think the first 7 or 8 guys by ADP are outfielders in best ball, Underdog Best Ball. And, the first few drafts I did, I kind of went infielder and pitcher heavy. But shortly thereafter, found out just how tough of a spot I'd be in with the outfield if I did that.
Right. So I've only signed up for one, and you did them one sitting, bang them out, which is what I really want to do, and I will be doing. I'm only doing an 8-hour draft, which is that's all they really had. So I've only had 2 picks so far. I did the rankings according to the way I do points rankings, and there were a couple outfielders. I mean, but mine were more balanced, at least my rankings. But I did find that the drafters went after outfielders pretty strong. And it's probably because they realized that they're going to thin out pretty quickly. What I'm going to do, and again, this is just what I see my likely strategy without having it being played out, is I've got 2 infielders to start. I think I'm going to get a pitcher next. So I may have more outfielders in reserve relative to infielders so that I have a better chance of an outfielder or 2 popping that week and jumping into my top 3. You know what I mean? So I may have weaker reserve infielders and saying, you know what, I drafted Matt Olson and I drafted Jose Ramirez. These guys are my guys. I'm not gonna worry about backing them up. But my outfielders, so there's 10 starting lineup, and then
10 bench spots.
And then 10 bench spots. So if I have, I don't know, 4 pitchers, and then I'll probably go 4 outfielders and 2 infielders. I'm just guessing right off the top. That's what I will do to try to make up for my early on lack of quality of outfielders.
I hear you. It is tough if you miss on some of those early. Like I was one of the first ones I did on Underdog. I was picking at the 1-2 turn, so at the wheel. Trey Turner was still there at 12, and I thought, man, I got to take Trey Turner, and I did. But it gets to a certain point in the draft where you're passing on some good pitchers, some good infielders to start filling those outfield spots, and I think it's you're sacrificing probably too much if you don't get at least 3 or 4 outfielders within the first 10 picks, honestly.
Yeah. So, the other thing I need to do is my program considers the replacement level of infielders and outfielders to be the same. I need to reprogram it to adjust. And maybe that will push outfielders up my ranking. So I will do that. Maybe that will be my project tonight, because I get a spreadsheet where you plug in the point system and it ranks customized points. And that's where, it came up fairly equally. What's going to be my conundrum? I've been kind of a anti-Dylan Cease guy as far as Roto goes, but he's bubbling to near the top of my points rankings. And him and Aaron Nola. I've got 5 picks left, and they're both really high up on my list. It's just not an outfielder anywhere close. So that's why I'm going to have to wait another round for an outfielder. But I may be taking Dylan Cease after all my Roto shade. He could be my first pitcher ever in Underdog.
Well, I am just dipping my toes in, as I mentioned.
I am too.
Brave new world for me. I'm really enjoying it, though. But, man, it just – all these infielders, especially with catchers getting lumped in, although Dalton Varsho gets lumped in with the outfielders. But a guy like, JT Realmuto is still sitting there. And granted, you don't need to fill up a catcher spot, but even as an infielder, guy who's going 20-20 playing every day, I think he's a great value. But if you don't have outfielders yet, you're going to be passing on guys like Realmuto, Jose Miranda, Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario. You're going to be passing a lot of good guys just to grab some outfielders. And I really, in my brief experience, 4 drafts, I found it to be that outfield should be the number one priority. And that's how drafters with experience on Underdog play it.
Right. Although I'll say that doesn't necessarily make it right. So
that's true. The winner will probably be heavy infield.
We shall see. I don't know. I I had Jose Ramirez is my number one ranked player, and it wasn't even close by the numbers.
For best ball?
Yeah, by their scoring system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took him 5th and was happy with it. And then I did, Olsen. I wasn't looking for an infielder, but there wasn't any outfielders anywhere close, and I think I can get a pitcher next. So, I'm hoping that while everybody else is catching up on infield, I'm able to grab the outfielders that I need to at least be competitive. And I have kind of a disadvantage in that I'm going to complete probably 3, sit and go drafts before I complete this one.
So, jump in the dinger. I highly recommend it. Those are the 4 I've done have all been the dinger.
Okay, I've done
a lot of fun. You can knock it out in like an hour and 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean the difference is 2 different price, same idea, 2 different price ranges. So yours is like the $3. I'm in the $10 one, and I think we're going to be talking about this every week. My first blush is, we talk, multiple teams. This is designed to draft it's designed to. I'm bored. $10, $3. I'm going to draft another team. I'm done in an hour. That's I think that's the business model. And I think if you do that, I think you need to think about how you could frame each team. I
differentiate a little bit.
Where I'm going at is I don't think you can stack completely, but I think on each team you can have like 3 offensive players from the same team by design. And that it's not going to crush you if they face a tough pitcher in a particular week, because you still have other players to backfill their spots. But the idea about stacking, it's the same in DFS. For every, for an event, you get points. For when a teammate knocks in a teammate, for that one event, you get points on 2 different players. So it's the number. So you need fewer events to get more points. So I went through and the top 100. This team has 6 players. This team has 5. I've identified the teams that I'm going to stack, and I'm not going to go into draft stacking. This time I'm stacking Reds. I don't think I'm ever going to say that, but I drafted Matt Olson. I have the Braves down as one of my potential stacking teams. So later on, I will look to pick up 2 or 3 more Braves when they're at the top or near the top of my rankings. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think there'll be times where it may work out.
Well, let me know how it goes if you go that infielder route early, because the outfield options get questionable in a hurry. Even like Yoshida, your new guy with the Red Sox, he's getting heavy helium over there. But that's going to do it for our Underdog Best Ball segment. As Todd mentioned, we are going to be talking best ball, Underdog Best Ball specifically, every Friday on the show. Use promo code RWMLB. They will match your first deposit up to $100, and you get that free 6-month subscription to RotoWire. Sorry to cut you off, Todd. I just wanted to kind of wrap up that segment for the show. A lot of fun over on Underdog, but let's transition back with the time we have left on the show. We're already pushing up on an hour. The time we have left, let's transition back to the roundtable. And I just want to mention a guy that I'm lower on than most, and maybe the case isn't so good, but Adolis Garcia is a guy that, Todd, I just don't trust him yet. I know he's put together 2 solid years. I'm the only one who has him outside the top 100 on the roundtable. RotoWire.com/free to get a free trial to check out this on us. Look, 2 years, 2 seasons is a short lifetime in Major League Baseball. But we saw this with Javier Baez. He was able to get away with it for a while, but eventually that pendulum's going to swing. 30% K rate for his career, 5.6% walk rate. I know he hits the ball hard and he's played a lot, But even in 2021, when he had 31 homers, 16 bags, he was a shade under league average by WRC plus. I'm still hesitant to buy in on Adolis Garcia.
Yeah, I wrote his site profile, so I'm kind of going through it here. I'm curious about Baez because to me, he had a bad 2020. It was a pandemic year, and he really stunk last year. If you throw out 2020, it very well be that last year was the aberration and it was the first year with a new team. And if he has a bounce back this year with the fences and everything else, then just that 2020 was the pandemic year and you ignore it. So he's kind of someone I'm watching this season. Garcia, I mean, as I wrote, I wrote the site profile. You sign up for free, run to the Garcia profile. I like what I'm seeing, but my final sentence was the power speed combo was enticing, but chasing it is dicey. Mm-hmm. And is that hee-hawing or whatever? I like him. I trust that he's going to play a lot. He struck out fewer times last season. Whether he maintains that 28% strikeout rate is huge, or he reverts back to 31 in that range. I saw enough of an improvement that I'm willing to buy in. Again, safety early, take your chances a little bit later. Maybe Garcia is where I'm willing to take a chance later.
Okay. See, I've been impressed by what he's done, but I'm just not a believer yet. He's a late bloomer, too. He's going to be 30, actually, by the time opening day rolls around. I see the chase rate. He likes to go fishing quite a bit. Chase rate and whiff rate, both in the bottom 10 percentile of the league. And, I'm not trying to get too much in the weeds with it, like I did Jose Ramirez a few years ago. But breaking balls, 199 average. According to Statcast, he overperformed on off speed, so I'm not really sure he can hit anything but a fastball.
Maybe, or the other hand, you get better. I do like the durability too.
He has cleared 600 plate appearances the last 2 years.
Right, I like that. There's no one else. His defense declined, so yeah. Actually, I don't remember where. All right, so where do I have him relative to everybody else on the?
So Adolis, I have him 103. Jeff has him 60. You have him 46, and then you have him. Yeah, you have him 46. Eric has him 50.
Yeah, I felt it kind of goes against my comment. Don't chase. First pick in the fourth round kind of feels like I'm chasing him. I don't know what his ADP is to know if I actually am chasing him. But
look at his NFBC ADP.
I'll bet it's lower just because people are taking pitching where I'm not. So it may be one of the cases where I don't have to take him at 46. I can take him in the next round.
His NFBC ADP is 59.2, player rank 56 by ADP.
Yeah, so I could play chicken with him, and because that's 10 pitchers drafted ahead of ahead of my rankings, and there are those 10 spots. So you know what? It's probably in the middle of the two of us, which is kind of always the case.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna back off where I'm going. With Garcia, I've actually looked at it enough because I knew I was ahead of the field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna back off it, and I still think the comment about chasing it is dicey. I still think it's worth, even though it may not match up with my personal numbers. I think it matches up pretty well with my overall approach. Now, looking at Jeff's projection, interesting that he has a drop in steals. Again, he has 7 fewer than last year. This is completely subjective, and we're all in our own boat about it. 25 steals that's like that range where he could steal more. So
Maybe his sprint speed was kind of modest, only 66th
yeah.
percentile.
So maybe that's where I have it as well, because I think that's in the range where I have him improving a little bit with steals. I'm checking to see how many at bats Jeff. You see, Jeff only has them for 129 games. So, and Texas has made a couple signings that, could threaten the playing time a little
especially
bit.
if he slumps. I mean,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
got to be no room for
Yeah,
battling through it on
yeah,
that team this year.
yeah. So, so that's why a little bit lower. You add in some more games, and it gets a lot closer.
Yeah, I'm not on the Ed O'Lease train this year. It
Okay.
was fun, and I still think he's a pretty good player, but I think people may be a little disappointed with the sticker price.
I think in
Real quick,
general. Okay,
sorry, Todd, do you mind if I put you on pause for 1 second?
go
One
for it.
last brief word from our sponsor, Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax makes it easy. That's what I always hear from people who have migrated to Fantrax, how great the transition was, how smooth it was. And you can indeed import from really anywhere. All your current leagues can be imported and customized if needed. That's, if you're fed up with your commish service, and believe me, I'm fed up with several, um, the transition to Fantrax can be a breeze for your league. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. And if you need a customizable commissioner service for fantasy, Fantrax offers more customization than any other platform. Waivers, scoring system, schedule, whatever you need. And it's all free. Sign up free today, and you could be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from my guy, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/rotowire. Sign up today. That's fantrax.com/rotowire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Did you have something you wanted to say before I cut you off, Todd, or were you?
Well, real quick, I was just gonna. I mean, we've gone down the line of we were speaking about some plate discipline, where we have to kind of loosen up our personal filters as far as walks and strikeouts go.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we have to go back in the other direction with the shift and people putting the ball in play. I guess Garcia, he may be a guy that relative to the field, if everybody else's batting average is getting better, his may not get better. So it's kind of an argument on your side of the equation.
Well, yeah, he'll be maybe a hot button guy because his draft cost has soared, obviously, and
It's those steals.
It's the plate discipline just leaves him open, I think, to too much variability, and I think he's susceptible to some slumps.
Well, that's the thing: is 31 strikeout, 27% strikeout. Is the next number 23? Right?
Yeah.
Does it keep going down, or does it find its
moving back up to over?
Does it go back up? Right? Does it go back in the middle? So it just we never know. Projection theory says when it's 3, 2, 1, the next number isn't always 0. It's usually something closer to 2.
Yeah, I just with those kind of plate skills, I have trouble taking anybody.
Yeah.
With that kind of plate management, up near 50, just leaves open too much downside risk for me. Now, as I say that, downside risk, I actually have Chris Sale. I'm the high man on Sale, 118. You're the low man at 186. It's kind of funny because I've been low on Sale for years, but now I'm suddenly the high man. He is throwing off a mound. Had that bicycling accident. Ended up with him in several of the underdog leagues I did, and it just feels like maybe it's time to get back in on Sale, but you're not so sure.
Man, I with the way I approach pitching, with the way I approach pitching, I wait for a little bit. So some people think, well, you need to take chances. I think because I'm waiting, I can't take chances. I need to be right. So I don't know. it's odd. You mentioned Underdog. In a best ball, I'm probably least likely to take Sale, just because with no replacements, I may be down 5% on my roster, and only be working with 95% of a roster that everybody else has 100%. So it's kind of weird. How many innings are we going to get? I don't know. So I don't.
Ton of injuries in recent years.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just, at the price, I want him. I want Sale when I can stream him. Never thought you'd say that about Chris Sale. And I don't know I'm not sure where he's going. And for me, that means he has to be the 46, 7, around pitcher 50, around starting pitcher 50 off the board to a point where I'm comfortable. And I don't think he's making it that far. Maybe he is. I don't know.
ADP on NFBC is 168. So I think I'll probably end up with Sale in a lot of leagues, especially if things check out early in the spring. He's throwing free.
I hope you're right, my friend. Man, I hope you're right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could blow up in my face, certainly. But the fact that he's already throwing off a mound, it was the bicycling accident last year that was in, August? Early August. So he's had a while to recover. We'll see. I like him. Another guy I got to just probably lower in my next update here is Andres Munoz, kind of similar to Yohan Duran in that I might just be wish casting here, and definitely no lock that he is the full-time closer or even the primary closer with Sewald there. But I just love the skills. It may be just me too hopeful, though.
I don't know. I'm with you on this one. Now, my ranking may not reflect. Anytime you're in a draft, you got to throw your rankings are relative to what the room is doing.
Yeah.
So, but Munoz is a guy that I am when I'm drafting closers. He is someone I'm looking at in a big way because I can use him regardless, and there's a chance that he becomes the guy. So I'm with. I don't know where we rank according to I could look up where we rank according to the roundtable, but I am at least theoretically in lockstep with you on Munoz, like with words. Whether or not I showed it with my number, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I just think you're right that it's all relative. And once like the Clay Holmeses of the world are off the board, I have him like 114. I think it's not a bad gamble, especially because you look at how he projects by the numbers, and hell, man, if you just leave him in, even if he's not getting a ton of saves, he could be a net positive.
I may do this for Z files, depending on how much work it is and how much I'm going to put it into use. I wonder if I redo my rankings specifically for an NFBC league. You know what I mean? Because I think they're different. Because I know in an NFBC league, pitchers are going to go here, relievers are going to go here, catchers are going to go here. So in order for me to put together a team which I feel will be competitive, I can't draft off this list that I put in the roundtable. It won't work. I won't, so.
Well, if you use common sense with your.
Well, yeah, but I want, yes, but I'm so for maybe a nice piece to put common sense on paper and come up with, this is close to what my list would be if it were an NFBC league. So I don't know, maybe it's too particular, and we don't, we need to, we got to focus on more than NFBC. But
that's why we balance these out,
right? No, exactly.
More,
but I guess what I'm saying is, if my either real list or common sense list that were in my head list for NFBC league is different.
Well, I'm proud to say that I am the low man on Adalberto Mondesi. Don't draft him. We could talk about this all day, but probably
we're going to get to talk about it in a week. I think we're going to be talking about it on MLB Network Radio.
Oh yeah, you and I are having like a little bit of a reunion show next week on MLB Network.
Talking to Eric, the away. What we decided was we'll continue with our positional when he gets back and freeing us up to do whatever we want. And I thought the roundtable would be cool. I'm serious.
There will be more roundtables than ever this year. We'll be
Yeah.
updating those pretty regularly, more regularly than we have in the past. So hopefully you enjoy those. Anything else on your mind, Todd, before we sign off for the day?
Oh, there's so much on my mind.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, we kind of alluded to it on the radio with Eric tomorrow, Sirius XM, MLB Network Radio. We'll both be getting back to our regular routines on the Fantasy Channel coming soon enough. But yeah, glad to be back with you, Clay, and getting the old gangs back together. I saw Jeff and Scott were nominated for an award, so we weren't going to break them up.
yeah, congrats to those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, looking forward to it, and yeah, hopefully we'll think of something to talk about before we get back into the 2-star pitchers.
Yeah, I think we might have a few things to touch on in the weeks and months ahead. Well, always great to pick your brain, Todd. Really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you all for listening. We are sponsored by Fantrax and Underdog Fantasy. We'll be back, next week, 5 days a week through the end of the season.
Well,
So,
we won't be back 5.
well, we won't be back,
RotoWire
but
will
the
be.
RotoWire pod will be back
Yeah.
5 days a week. We'll be back every Friday, and yeah, it should be a fun journey through the fantasy baseball season. Take care, and we'll see you next time on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast.